Barbara Gordon, daughter of Gotham City Police Commissioner James Gordon and member of the Bat family, is one of the most versatile superheroes in comics. Not only has she been the most recognizable and noteworthy incarnation of the costumed vigilante Batgirl, but following a horrific injury suffered at the hands of the Joker that left her paralyzed from the waist down, she would continue her fight against crime in a new role as Oracle, providing Batman and other DC heroes with information and hacking services while on the field, acting as their eyes and ears. To celebrate this amazing character and the immense diversity she has brought to superhero comics, I will be counting down my picks for her greatest adversaries she has fought throughout the years. Not many people seem to be familiar with her rogues gallery, and I hope to shed more light on them in this video. Starting off my list at number 10, I am going with a villain introduced during the New 52, called Nightfall. Her real name is Charisse Carnes, and she was the daughter of a wealthy real estate mogul in Gotham City. When she was 16, her boyfriend Trevor, a psychopath, murdered and skinned her family right in front of her and made her watch. Knowing that the prison system would prove ineffective in delivering him the justice she felt he deserved, she would be incarcerated at Arkham Asylum on purpose and learned madness, as she puts it, from the other inmates there. She would find Trevor and torture him within his prison cell, and claims that the real insane asylum is outside the walls of Arkham, society itself. She hopes to completely eliminate crime by drowning it in blood, the blood of the guilty. So I guess she sorta has good intentions, but has become deranged and violent. She also leads a group of enforcers that share her same beliefs. Next up at number 9 is the villain known as Blacksun. His real name is Ethan Cobblepot, and he is the son of Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin, who had gotten Ethan's mother knocked up while she was working as a waitress at the Iceberg Lounge years ago. Blacksun is definitely one of these more modern-day villains. He's got Gen Z written all over him. He's the CEO of VicForm, a technology firm. He wears this vector suit that allows him to manipulate technology and hypnotize people through their phones. Ethan uses social media to take over his father's business and dated Barbara Gordon briefly, though she broke it off because he was obsessing over her too much. Following his first battle against Batgirl, Blacksun's suit would short-circuit and cause electrical burns all over his body. When he returned with a revamped costume, his face had also been disfigured and sort of resembled his father's. I know Blacksun has ties with the Penguin, and the mind control stuff through technology is kind of cool, but there are a lot more interesting Batgirl villains than him, in my opinion. At number 8, we have the wealthy adrenaline junkie Philippe Rion, who goes by the name of Grotesque. He covers his face with a demonic-looking party mask and possesses the ability to absorb and project electricity, conducting it through a specialized club. The original Grotesque would come into conflict with Batgirl a couple times, with her finding out one of his henchmen had been a goon formerly employed by the Joker the night she had been paralyzed. Rion was eventually murdered, though, and stuffed into the fridge of a corrupt cop-turned-serial killer named Evan Douglas, who ended up stealing the Grotesque identity for himself. Moving on to number 7 is the robot Barbara had created based on her Oracle symbol that was intended to assist her with operations and hacking when she was in a wheelchair. However, when she became Batgirl again and could walk, following an experimental surgery, she didn't need the robot anymore and hid it in a secret facility. It would be found by the terrible trio, and with the help of Lex Luthor, sought revenge against its creator. Next up at number 6 is Jonathan Mills, aka The Mirror. I find the concept behind this character to be really fascinating. He was the unwilling sole survivor of a car crash that killed his wife and twin daughters. Being robbed of his death following the tragedy, he dedicated his life to killing those that miraculously survived other such events, not allowing them to escape their destiny. I also really love his costume, with the broken mask and mirrors underneath his cape. It's really cool. His introduction came at a time when Barbara Gordon had recently undergone an experimental surgery that allowed her to walk again. Her stories discussed themes surrounding her post-traumatic stress from her injury and the survivor's guilt she was feeling, being able to walk again when others couldn't. At number 5 is the Ventriloquist, the Shauna Belzer version of the character introduced in the New 52. Shauna had been completely ignored by her parents in favor of her twin brother Ferdy, a child actor, and was bullied a lot in her youth. Shauna would learn that she possessed telekinetic powers and would use them to kill her brother while he was on a swing set, causing him to fall and break his neck. At a birthday party for one of her classmates, Shauna would poison the punch bowl and kill the clown performing there, named Rainbow Rodney, poor bastard, all so she could take his ventriloquist dummy, who she renamed Ferdy, after her deceased brother. As an adult, she would try out for the Gotham's Got a Star reality show, but her ventriloquist act would be rejected, as one of the judges could see her mouth move. This ordeal caused Shauna to snap, and she became a serial killer, calling herself the Ventriloquist. Unlike the original, Shauna could control her dummy without needing to touch him, like he was actually alive. Ferdy also made use of drills that could come out of both of his hands to kill people. Shauna had also murdered her parents and used her abilities to control their corpses at one point too, so that was fucked up. Next up at number 4, I have chosen the Joker. He obviously had to be on this list somewhere, due to the iconic moment in Batman the Killing Joke, where he shot Barbara Gordon in the spinal cord, paralyzing her. It led to Barbara being refitted in Batman stories as the Dark Knight's information broker and computer expert named Oracle. Even though her disability prevented her from being out on the field, she still found a way to fight alongside Batman and combat crime in any way that she could. Because of this tenacity, the Oracle side of the Barbara Gordon character became an icon for how it represented disabled people in mainstream media, superhero media specifically. She showed the world that we can all be tough as nails heroes, disability or not, because that's not what defines you. Unfortunately, in recent years, now that DC Comics has brought back Batgirl and restored Barbara's mobility, there has been a lot of controversy. Fans are divided over whether or not she should have remained in the wheelchair. In my opinion, I think we should have both. It all depends on the story. Clearly, there are fans of both versions of Barbara Gordon, Batgirl, and Oracle. And though having both gets kind of messy from a storytelling perspective, closing fans off completely from either side of her character would be wrong. They should both exist. She's been around for a long time in multiple different forms. Besides, having a tech expert working behind the scenes in an Oracle-like role doesn't have to be limited to just Barbara. Look at what was done with her roommate, Frankie Charles, who has muscular dystrophy. I think by having Barbara return as Batgirl, it just opens up the floodgates for more disabled characters in comics. She paved the way. At number 3, we have Killer Moth, one of Batman's more goofier villains that I've always had a soft spot for. Killer Moth may be a Batman villain primarily, but his strongest appearance in comics, in my opinion, was in the 2003 miniseries Batgirl Year 1. In the story, Drury Walker, using his criminal identity of Cameron Van Cleer, is suffering extreme financial hardship, drowning in debt. He attempts to kidnap Bruce Wayne at a gala event in the hopes of earning enough money to begin offering protection to other criminals in the city. However, the kidnapping fails, his henchmen abandon him, and the entire criminal underworld view Killer Moth as a laughingstock. Like a moth to a flame, literally, Walker would end up teaming with the pyromaniac Firefly, and the two would set the Gotham police station ablaze. Their partnership was short-lived, however, as Killer Moth found Firefly to be too unstable, even for his standards. Moving on to number 2 with Noah Cutler, also known as the Calculator. In his earlier comic book appearances, he literally wore a numerical keypad on his chest and could fire hard light constructs out of the LED display on his headpiece. It was fucking ridiculous. Pocket calculators just started hitting the market in the 1970s when he debuted though, so I guess it was the new hip thing to talk about. Anyways, newer versions of the character depict him as a highly intelligent computer whiz and hacker with OCD, obsessed with finding out the identity of Batman's partner, Oracle. Actually, the Calculator acts as a strong foil for Barbara Gordon, because in many stories, he's been the information broker and advisor for several supervillains, just like Oracle is for Batman and other superheroes. The Calculator would eventually gain the ability to take over all forms of machinery after he had downloaded the programming of an electro-mechano-organic intelligence called Kilgore directly into his bloodstream. This would just make him easier for Oracle to trace though in later encounters, as his brain was now part of the interwebs. And at number 1, we have one of the more personal enemies of Batgirl, her sadistic brother, James Gordon Jr. Growing up, Jimmy Jr. had dark and psychopathic tendencies, killing animals for fun, and possibly one of his sister Barbara's friends, when he managed to get a hold of her science kit, which was locked with a special key only she had, though it was never proven. He was in and out of psych wards throughout his life, and his relationship with not only Barbara, but his parents, Commissioner Jim Gordon and his wife Barbara, soured. In the 2011 storyline, The Black Mirror, despite James Jr. denying killing anyone, his father would find a box full of all the keys of James's victims, including Barbara's old friend. Tests would be done on his medication by his sister, revealing he had reversed its formula, causing it to increase the psychopathic thoughts of those that take it. James Jr. would kidnap his sister, stabbing knives into her femoral arteries without her knowing. That would cause her to bleed out if they were removed. He would attempt to poison the baby formula at the Infant Nutrition Center in Gotham with his altered medication to turn hundreds of the city's babies into psychopaths, facing off with Batman, Dick Grayson, in the process. And he kinda succeeds with it too. The ending of the story is left rather ambiguous, which is scary. To sum it up, James Gordon Jr. is a sadistic fuck. He enjoys torturing his victims, pulling them apart piece by piece. Well, that's gonna do it for my top 10 video. I hope you all enjoyed it and found it insightful. If I missed any Batgirl villains you would have included in your own personal ranking, feel free to share them in the comments section below so everyone else can see them. If you'd like to support the channel and ensure the production of more content like this, you can do so by subscribing, hitting that bell icon to be notified of future videos I release, and by becoming a producer over on patreon.com if you can. You can even nominate future comic and video game reviews, as well as gain access to exclusive monthly episodes of my podcast NerdGasm, over there as well. I will see you all in the next one. Take care, stay safe, and always stay nerdy.